I, by nature, am a skeptic. Anybody else a skeptic by nature? It's not a terrible thing. You know, that sounds kind of negative. It's not really that negative. It's just you don't always believe immediately what's thrown at you, right? I am one of those people, and sometimes it's hard to believe what's right in front of me. I'm like a magician's worst nightmare. Okay, because I'm like, how'd you do it? You know, I'm looking, I'm trying, let me get behind you and watch now while you do it. I mean, watch your arms and all the tricks, because I'm a skeptic. I want to know what's going on. I don't always believe what's right in front of me. And so for shopping, it's great, because I don't always believe that's the best price. Okay, when I look and I go, there's probably a better price out there, and I'll search and I'll drive my wife crazy, because I have to look at every TV before. It works great with cars, because then I know I get the good car, but then by the end of it, I'm an expert in cars, then I forget all about it until I need a new car again. That's just kind of the process of a skeptic. It kept me out of trouble growing up. I wasn't in the safest situations growing up, in the safest neighborhoods, and so being a skeptic, right, is good in that nature, because I look at it and I go, something's not adding up here. I'm going to walk the other way, right? It can help you survive and keep you out of trouble. But when my skills of skepticism becomes a problem, it's mostly when I try to use those skills on God. Because usually my skepticism is built on a logical nature of the things around me. Social interactions, things that I've experienced before. But that's really hard to do with God, because God He's above nature. He created it. He's above everything, right? And so He doesn't confine to the laws of nature, because He is the law of nature. And He can decide how it all changes and what it's going to be. So sometimes in my life, I struggle to see God active, and I struggle to see God involved because of my skepticism. Because sometimes I look at something and I'm like, that doesn't look right, it doesn't add up. And maybe that's the reason why you struggle as well. You're like, that couldn't have been God. Why would He care? Or why isn't God involved? Why isn't He? You get skeptical of what's in front of you. I think God can be so apparent and present in our lives that we completely miss Him most of the time, because we add it to that's the ordinary. That's how just things happen. We often want God to do something huge to nullify our skepticism. We're like, Lord, if you've done it, I've done it. It's like, Lord, you want to prove that you're real? Do this, like some big thing, right? When all along, He's been with you the whole time. The things that happen normally wouldn't happen or wouldn't have ever happened if it wasn't for Him. So the things that He put in motion. But sometimes we still want it, right? We're making a hard decision. We want some more confidence and be able to trust Him. So we need something to do something huge. And God's like, okay, you want me to do something huge? Like what? Something like create a rock that's large enough for you to live on, along with all the rest of humanity? And fine-tune everything about and around in such a way that it sustains life continually? Because I don't know if you know this, if the sun was just like a mile, if the earth was just like a mile closer to the sun, we'd all be fried. If it was a mile further from the sun, chances are we'd be all frozen, right? There is a very delicate balance in which we get to exist on this rock that's being hurled around the sun constantly. It's very delicate, life is. And then enough to sustain life, and then it's obviously better than any other floating rock out in the universe. And He's like, I already did all that. And we're like, no, do something truly amazing. He says, okay, how about a 576 megapixel camera? I'm going to put 2 of them on your face. I'm going to put 2 of them right here so you can see everything, right? It can be a part of everything, and you can discern things. How about I mount them in a very convenient place? You can use them to look around and explore this amazing earth. And how about I connect them to a 3,000 gigahertz computer? Oh, wait, I already did that. That's how they work, right? They take in for information through these giant megapixel cameras, and then it downloads it into a machine in your head that you can instantly be able to do some cool stuff with. Discern things. I was just talking to a friend about this in baseball. Like, what's the hardest thing in sports? That's to hit a round ball with a round bat, right? It's the only thing in sports that you can fail at most of the time and still be really good, right? And be paid millions of dollars to only hit 300% of the time, right? 0.3% of the time. Isn't that wild? But in that moment, there's a reason why the pitcher's mound is a certain distance from home plate, and because if it was any closer, it'd be impossible. If it was any further, it'd be a little easier, right? But there's like a millisecond that our eyes, and now the professional athletes, they're a little bit, maybe their cameras are 600 megapixel. I don't know. God gave them a little bit better one, maybe a couple more gigahertz in that brain, but they are able to process within a millisecond to send all of they got to try to hit a round ball with a round bat. It's amazing that we're able to do that. And we're like, no, do something truly amazing. He's like, okay, how about this? How about 50,000 cells in your body are going to die and be replaced with new ones with no conscious effort on your part before Bill can even finish the sentence that he's saying right now? Pretty amazing. We're like, no, something truly spectacular, like a miraculous healing. And they go, well, okay. So thanks to that 300 gigahertz computer and memory that comes with it, you're able to miraculously heal most things yourself. He said, I've created a species of healers. And the list can go on and on and on. If someone from 2,000 years ago visited a modern hospital today, they would assume that they were all gods because the abilities that they would have to heal people. You fast forward 1,000 years, be calling them a witch and trying to kill them, right? I mean, it blows our mind. It would blow their mind to what we're actually capable of and what God has built us with. Our ability to organize research and develop cures and build big buildings and do all this, be able to fly planes faster than ever. God did all that. This is the situation that we put ourselves in. Our skepticism against God causes a severe case of distancing, which can lead to just existing rather than truly living. We can get so built up in our own skepticism to not want to be tricked. That's one of our biggest fears, right? We don't want to look dumb. Even though compared to God, we are dumb, right? But we don't want to look dumb. So we're going to be skeptical. That way, nobody could trick us, right? Nobody's going to get one over on us. That's one of the most humiliating things that can happen is when we feel lesser because somebody tricked us, right? Have you ever been tricked? Somebody ever steals something from you? It's happened to me, right? You think that they mean well, but chances are they end up leaving and they disappeared and they walked away with a certain amount of money or a certain thing out of your hands, and you could feel dejected. You feel taken advantage of, right? Because of that feeling, we become more skeptical. And so we use it in everything. This brings us to part 5 of this collection, first person. We're following John's journey with Jesus, and John had a first person account of Jesus. And that is very important because this way of talking about things is normal to us, but it wasn't normal back then. This was actually a fresh new way of going about explaining something, right? An event, right? In such a way that it wasn't just about the actual, just the thing, right? So we have the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, right? And they call them Synoptic Gospels because they all match each other, and they all confirm each other, and they all validate each other, which is great. I'm glad we have that, and we very much needed that. However, John, closer to the end of his life, they said, John, we need you to write down your stories, man. We need the future generations to have the opportunity to hear about Jesus. How did it come about? Who? Because you were there. You had first person account. We want to hear from you. So he made the decision. That he's not just going to just give a detailed, this is what the events that happened. No, he's going to say, this is the events that happened in this order, which convinced him of something bigger, something more grand. His agenda is that we would know that Jesus is who he claimed to be. And we know that because of John 20:31. It says, these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. So he organized his account into around signs. And today we come to the fifth sign, and that's the healing of the blind man. Jesus has been back and forth between Galilee and Judea. He's back in the vicinity of Jerusalem, and we pick up in John 9. John 9:1, it says, as he went along, he's going about his way, doing his things, traveling back and forth, causing mayhem. It's getting a little more escalated every time because it's leading to something, right? It's a sign pointing out something. And so it says, as he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, like they're just walking on, they see the guy. And I would imagine probably the disciples, some of the knew who he was, right? Or Jesus just knew. He's like, I know exactly who this is, and I know he's been blind since birth. And so they asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Now, I've talked about this a little bit before. So it is assumed that if you have suffering in your life, if there's something, if you have an ailment, an affliction, anything, it's because of sin. You did something wrong, God's mad at you, you've been punished, right, with whatever it is. And I guess depending on the sin, the severity of the ailment or whatever, that was, there's more of it inflicted. I don't know what their assumptions were, but that was the main idea of it. They were considered to have cause, it was a cause and effect relationship. They did something, and now this is the effect of it. And sometimes they believe that the suffering is connected to behavior, ours or others. It can not even be your fault, because of the sin of someone else, that you have an issue in your life. So when that is the case, it's usually obvious if it was something that they did or something somebody did to them or whatever it may be. It's usually obvious. However, they would just lump it in because it's easier to define it that way. And when it's not obvious, there's no connection, and Jesus points that out to them. So this is what he says. Let's continue on in verse 3. So they said, was it him that sinned, or was it his parents? Was it their fault that he is blind? And he says, neither. It's not the answer they were expecting. Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that, he's about to give them a reason. This is wild. This has happened so that before you can think, I'm insensitive, right? Or you think that these are Jesus' words, all right? And this is one of those parts of the Bible where it's like, well, that's not fair. Well, you're not God either. You don't get to decide these things. You get to exist, right? And there's a reason why he doesn't. We don't always understand. His ways are beyond our ways. But Jesus taught that pain can have a purpose. And perhaps it always has a purpose, and as his certainly did. And this man's pain had a purpose. His blindness had a purpose. And maybe your pain that you haven't found it yet, you have a pain similar, something that ails you, that's something that walks with you, that you're always carrying it with you, whether it's a physical thing, an emotional thing, a mental thing, whatever it may be, a relational thing. There's a purpose. There can be a purpose if you'll let God be involved. So continue on, it says, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. This has happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. Sometimes God chooses to display his power on a stage of our suffering. Is that fair? Probably not. I don't know. But is it real? Absolutely. And when he does it, Do we pay attention? Absolutely we do. And that might be why he does it. Because sometimes that's the only way we pay attention. And I've seen that, and I know you've seen that. And he turns to them and he says this. He says, as long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming, we know, when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Jesus points to himself. He says, my identity will never be more obvious than it is now. He's telling them, guys, don't get distracted though. Pay attention to what I'm saying, because the next things that are coming, right, you need to know, for not just for you, but for the rest of humanity ongoing. So pay attention. The light of the world will never be brighter than it is now. And when I leave, it will be dark indeed. Yours is the generation that will see, so watch and believe. And John, take good notes. I would imagine he would tell them. And so verse 6, continuing on, it says, after saying this, he spit. Again, guys, just put yourself in their shoes. He says this profound thing, and he's like, hey, you got to pay attention. You know, you're the pa-ding, you know, on the ground, right? You split a rock in half, probably. If we're talking about God, the universe spitting on the ground. So it's after saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva. How gross, right? And then slaps it on the man's eyes. It's like, hold still, buddy. Right? Weird situation. I bet they were like, okay, he has lost it. Jesus has lost it, guys. You need a Snickers, Lord. That's what you need. You're not acting like yourself right now. There's something going on here. I wish we had more details of this, but with anybody in a first-person account, I would imagine they're doing their best, right? It's kind of like the news when you see someone that had just watched something that was big and weird, and they're like, it's kind of like this, and I imagine they're kind of doing the same thing. Jesus didn't ask him first. You notice that too. He just grabbed him, threw some spit mud in his eyes. And then in verse 7, he says, go. He told him, wash in the pool of Siloam. Go. Didn't say, hey, by the way, I'm Jesus, and this is how the theology works on it, right? And if you join my Facebook group, you can find out more. And you can start coming to this and doing that. No, he just said, go. I've done the thing. He is absolute. He didn't have to check in, get permission from anybody important or anything like that, because he was the one that's important. And that's why he said, hey guys, pay attention. It's going to be night soon. I know you don't understand that, but I'm going to be gone. And this is all you're going to have to remember, and what all the people after you are going to have to believe in your first-person account of the crazy thing you just saw. So remember it. We continue on in verse 7. It says, so the man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg? Some claimed that he was. Others said, no. Again, skepticism. They're not believing what their eyes are seeing. No, he only looks like him. But he himself insisted, I am the man. What a thing. I am the man. How then were your eyes open, they asked. He replied, the man they called Jesus made some mud, probably didn't know it was spit, made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see. Where is this man, they asked. And he's like, I don't know. I would imagine he's like, I didn't see him. There you go. Pastor jokes. This was enough to cause a ruckus in where they're at. It would cause a ruckus here. It would cause a ruckus now. It's like, how did you do this? Who performed this to make this happen? In John 9:13, it says, they brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes, he did it again. We just talked about this a couple weeks ago. He did it on the Sabbath. Again, the day that they're not supposed to be doing anything. It's like he's doing it on purpose almost, right? Now he's just really trying to rub it in, spit and mud and all. And he says, now on the day he opened on the Sabbath, so will Jesus ever learn? No, he kicks the hornet's nest again. He wants to. He pokes the bear, the religious hierarchy bear. And so according to the tradition of the elders, kneading or mixing, it's not the fact that he healed them, is that he kneaded some mud and mixed it with his spit and hands. That was forbidden on the day of the Sabbath. It was all the rules that they had come up with, right? And so not only that, but then there was a healing. And so verse 15 it says, therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He said, he put mud on my eyes. The man replied, and I washed, and now I see. They keep asking him and pelting him. He's like, I've told you everything. I didn't see him, okay? And then there was mud on my eyes, and then he told me to go wash it, and now I can see. Now you're up to date on what we know, right? He's like, now you're in the same with me, right? You know what's going on. Sometimes explaining, and I'm sure you've experienced this, I've experienced this, sometimes explaining how God has worked in your life can be super confusing. And it can make you sound crazy, right? Because you're like, I don't have all the facts and figures, and I don't know how it all happened, but I just know this is what happened. This is what happened. This is what I saw. This is what I didn't see, and this is how it ended up. His ways are not our ways, because it's not always going to make sense to us. But with humans, we tend to fear, this is a lot of problems with humanity, why we have a lot of issues, is we tend to fear the things that we don't understand. And when we fear something we don't understand, that's when skepticism creeps in. And it can become more powerful as we become more discerning based on the objects in front of us. Some of us, it can make us solve mysteries. Other us, it can make us become hermits and hide, right, from the rest of the world and be scared of things that we shouldn't be scared of. Verse 16, some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God. They're skeptical because it's not adding up the way that they think it should add up. And I would say, how would you know that? And so based on their deduction, they would say, this man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. He doesn't keep God's rules, or our perception of his rules, and so he therefore must not be from God. He didn't keep their version of what the Sabbath was, what they had decided what the Sabbath was. He didn't fit, and this is important, and we'd all do this, he didn't fit into their God box. They had finally crafted all these rules to help understand, or at least stay in the good graces of God, right? And so they end up creating a box, right? Not a literal box, but just like a metaphor of a box of like, if it is God, it has to work within these boundaries. It's something that we still do today, and that's why different denominations, religions, and argue and say that we're the ones that are more right because our box is a little different. And we think our box is better. Our box encapsulates God more. And we've excluded the things that we don't like in the Bible, that we don't think was God, right? And all this kind of stuff. And it all kind of rolls and rolls and rolls. That's basically what they're doing. Continue on in verse 16. It says, but others asked, how can a sinner, someone's asking the right questions, how can a sinner perform such signs? So they were divided. Then they turned again to the blind man. What have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened. Then the man replied, he's a prophet? I guess, right? That's the only thing he can come up with maybe what he's heard in his life of who does these kind of things. He's grasping to understand it all himself. Prophet sounds safe. And I'll say, basically, he's like, I'll say what I need to get out of this. Like, so you guys will leave me alone because I got some stuff to see. I haven't been seeing for a long time. Right now I get to see. I want to go see things. I'm tired of looking at you people. So I want to go see some other stuff. So just whatever it takes. He's a prophet. Fine. Leave me alone. Verse 18. They still did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. They need some backup information. And they said, is this your son? They asked. Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that now he can see? We know, this is the parents, we know he is our son. We recognize him. The parents answered. And we know he was born blind. But how he can see now or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He's of age. He will speak for himself. His parents, he's a grown man, if you know what I'm saying. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders who had decided, right? Meaning that it was obvious that they had made up their mind before they even met the son or knew about anything like that. They had made up their mind. There was no room in their worldview or theology that would give the opportunity for someone to be healed in such a way on that specific day. Their box was solid. They thought they had figured it out. So who had already decided, there it is, sorry, verse 22, had already decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. You're not allowed in this church because you don't believe and say the things that we think you should say. That was why his parents said, he is of age, ask him. He was already ostracized, already excommunicated because they thought he was a sinner because he was blind. Religious leaders were blinded by their logical bias. Francis Collins, I mentioned him very early on in this collection, refers to it as a willful blindness. They were willfully blind to the things that were in front of them because it didn't match up with what they decided was the thing. The box. It didn't fit in their box, so they're going to be blind to it. They're going to resist it. And the Pharisees were not satisfied. John 9:24, it says, a second time they summoned the man who had been blind. Give glory to God by telling the truth. Now they're trying to gaslight him, saying, you don't want to mess with God now. You've messed with us, I get it, but you don't want to mess with God. Don't do that. So tell us the truth, right? They said, we know this man is a sinner. He replied, whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. I don't know everything, nor do I understand everything. But I have to understand that everything, you don't have to know everything to believe anything, right? Just because you don't understand everything doesn't mean you can't take a faith step toward believing something. You know, you get that? I mean, you are smart enough to weigh the circumstances, right? Now, if I told you there was an invisible bridge that goes off a cliff and that you should just run down it and don't just trust me, be skeptical of that. But making a step to treat other people better, because it's not so much that Jesus is asking us to do something that's bad, go hurt people, go do something damaging. He's saying, no, love one another as I have loved you in sacrifice. Be generous to one another. And when the rich young ruler came to say, hey, what do I do with all my riches? Sell it all, give it away, and follow. Like, these are all great things. So making a step towards Jesus and trying to, even if it's like, it's hard to wrap my mind around being fully God and fully man and dying and rising again, right? I get that. That's the hardest thing to get on board with. But you can try his teachings and make a step that way. You don't have to have it all figured out. Maybe this is what's been tripping you up. You want to understand everything before you believe anything. And I get that. Being a skeptic, I get that. However, you and I don't hold to the standard in other areas of our life. You're like, well, yes, I do. Okay, well, do you believe in love? If you got a sweetie around your arm right now, chances are you believe in love, right? Can you explain it? No, because sometimes you don't want to love and you love anyways, right? And it doesn't make sense. Do you believe in energy, in electricity, information? Do you believe in consciousness? Can you explain any of them? Can't really. Do you believe in morality? Why? Does it matter? And where does it even come from? How do we know what's right and wrong? If we're all a cosmic oopsie, everything is free game, right? There's nothing, but for some reason, something inside of us tells us that's an area we don't go. And that's a thing we don't do to other people. Right? Where does that come? Can you explain it? You can't. So you don't have to know everything about everything before you believe in something. Verse 25, it says, he replied, whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, basically going, I'm as confused as you are, guys. I was blind, but now I see. He says, hard to argue with that. I was blind, and now I see. So something obviously is going right here. The story is the same for millions of Christians. I can't explain it all. I don't understand it all. All I know is that I was at the end of myself. I cried out for help, and something changed. And I've never been the same since. Verse 26. Then they asked him, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? They were asking to change their minds. But they were also asking to change their minds. They wanted something. They were baiting for it. They were looking for a reason not to believe. And I imagine at this point, the blind man is probably getting frustrated. Again, he's like, I'm tired of looking at you guys. I want to see the world, right? Leave me alone. So verse 27, he answered, I have told you already, and you do not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too? Then they hurled insults at him. That was like the perfect slam. You want to follow him too? Cool. Then they hurled insults at him and said, you are this fellow's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know what God spoke to Moses, but as far as this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from. The man answered, now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. The man is saying, isn't it obvious that only God could do that? How much more evidence do you need? How about you open your eyes? That's what he's telling them. See, I might have been physically blind, but now I can see, but you are still mentally blind. You are not believing what's right in front of you. Your eyes must be closed. He continues, if this man were not from God, he could do nothing. To this they replied, you were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us? And they threw him out. They told the man he deserved to be blind. And they threw him out of the synagogue. A willful blindness, a refusing to look, refusing to see what can be seen, refusing to discover what can be discovered is not flattering to anyone. It just makes you look, the worst fear we have, looking dumb. How can you deny what's right in front of you? And Christians are not immune to this. Historically, our resistance to science or people not like us has made us look like the religious leaders of this book, the Pharisees. There is all sorts of things all over the news. It doesn't take long to open it up and see just the whacked out craziness that is being done in God's name. I mean, people, I just saw recently that somebody is selling a guardian angel. You can buy a guardian angel. I've seen all sorts of crazy crap out there, okay? There's no other better way I can say it. All being done in the name of the Creator who healed the blind, raised people from the dead. Not a gimmick, not to change our lives and bring us closer to the one who created us, to give us the opportunity to be reconnected to Him. We've done this, and we've hurt people. The church has hurt people because of that, and they've turned away, missing these opportunities. And if you've limited God to the God of the box, you will be tempted not only to not look at anything that doesn't fit in that box. And we should be the most accommodating people in any room. Based on what Jesus tells us, and we call ourselves Christ followers, there is not a single room that people walk in. If we are in the room, we should be the most welcoming and the most loving. Because we source and are connected and follow and work with the one that is the most loving and the most connecting. And on not just a physical level, but a spiritual level. You ever met that person in your life? They're a believer and they're maybe a crazy Christian and they're always happy, right? Just when you're around them, though, not only do you feel good, but it's like your spirit feels good. Like you got a little bit closer to the source of God. It's because Jesus is inside of them. And they are sharing Jesus with you as much as they can, while respecting your free will and all that you do in your life. Again, we should be the most accommodating. And if you're not a Christian, or you used to be, and have you looked lately based on what's going on in your life? Have you shut the door once and for all? And is that really wise to do? Maybe you have a box as well, and you don't realize it. Do you immediately discount anything that doesn't immediately fit? Perhaps that's why you walked away from faith. Maybe the God you quit believing in was similar to the God of the box. Sometimes when someone tells me what they think God should be and how and why would he do this and why would that, and they give him an identity, it's like, I wouldn't want to follow that God either. Thankfully, that's not the God I follow. Sometimes we give him the fault for things that were not his fault. It's just humans being humans and being damaging as we can be and being consuming. Perhaps God is bigger than what we thought he was. Perhaps God is bigger than what you were taught he was. And it's okay to be wrong. It's okay. We're all wrong about something at some time, and maybe even most things, but it's okay not to know always. We're all learning, but I would suggest it's not okay not to look if there's something there. I would say if something is sparked inside of you and you're like, explore it. He's the God of the universe. If he can lead you to where you've gone, he can lead you anywhere and in out of anything and give you some truth. And there's not always going to be an answer to everything, and we've got to be okay with that. And John's message to us in light of this is simply this. There's something you should see. I gave an account to it, hoping that once you heard what I saw, you would, verse John 20:31, you would believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. He would say, I'm not telling you to believe just because it feels good to have hope or it's better than the worst thing. He's saying, no, I saw something. And it was so convincing in the events that happened and how it led up to it that John and every other disciple and follower since then has decided, I'm willing to give up my life for this. I'm willing to abandon my business, what I do, become a traveling evangelist, risk my life. And they didn't always look good either. Scripture didn't always paint them out to be the smartest and the genius. I know that when I wasn't here last Sunday and Hannah said the notes were obviously from a genius. They're just humans like us who were trying to do something, who saw something and they couldn't deny it. And so they made steps toward that direction. Here's what I think John would say to us now. I was one of the first person accounts that believed, that had the privilege to live in the days of Jesus, when the light of the world touched down in this world. And it was so much better, and he was so much bigger than I thought he could be. He so loved the world that he gave himself so that no one would ever be lost to God. When he died, we assumed we had been fooled and it was over. The believers, after Jesus died, became unbelievers. And it wasn't until they found an empty tomb and couldn't find his body anymore, and the linens were laid exactly in the place, doing the impossible again, that they clicked and they realized he is who he said he was. And everything that happened before was for all of eternity from this point forward. That he literally is the Son of God. And he literally came to save this world, to bring us back to our Creator. When he died, again, they thought they were fooled. The worst fear of a human and why we become skeptics. But when he rose from the dead, they would say, we realize he's exactly who he claimed to be, and it was so much bigger than we thought. And you're like, oh, it's really cool for them, really cool for John, but how does that apply to me? I would say take some time alone. Take your own time, take it as a couple, whatever it may be, and evaluate your life. Step back. Don't be blinded. Don't be blinded by your own fears and your worries of, I don't know everything, and I'm not going to say anything if I don't know everything. Stop that. Just like you take a risk on love, you believe in morality, all of these things. Give God an opportunity to show off where he's already working in your life. And if there's something huge going on in your life that you're like, I just don't know if God would even care, give it to him. Just say, Lord, I literally do this, and you can more than welcome to take it. If there's something big and I don't even know how to give it to God, I say, God, here. Something about the physical motion of like, I'm throwing it up, Lord, lobbing it up there. Can you slam dunk it, please? You know, that kind of thing. Just literally hand it off to him and watch what he does. Because the same God, the same Jesus that walked the earth, healed the blind, is the same Jesus calling out to you. And he's doing it through John. Do not miss next week. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you for the grand opportunity that we get to come together and talk about this and to research and to apply all that John, his account of what you did. I'm so thankful that the Spirit has led them to put this on paper so that we could have it today. And Lord, some of these things we don't have answers to. There's a lot in life that we don't have answers to. We might not ever. But it's out of our jurisdiction. It's out of our pay grade. And I pray that our fear and skepticism because of that would not hinder us from a relationship with you. That this week, somebody who's listening to this message would make that first step, saying, you know what, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to start trying to follow Jesus. I'm going to start treating people the way he called me to treat people. I'm going to start trying to talk to him and have a relationship with him. And then watch it unfold in this beautiful, miraculous way that as you become more active in their life. And they begin to see all the things that you had been protecting them and loving them and providing for them. Lord, help us to see what that is. And as a church, as we continue to gather and come together every Sunday to talk about you and talk about all the awesome things that you have for us and all the hard stuff that are confusing to us, as we do that, help us to bond together more in it so that we can help each other. When we're down, when we're not feeling it that day, that we can hold each other up. And we can say, it's okay, let's keep going, let's keep walking. Just like the disciples did of that time. So help us to proclaim this message with as much fervency and as much courage as the disciples did, because Lord, you are more than worth it. You are exactly what the humanity needs. So bless this time, bless our efforts together as a church and everything that we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.